Waiters, what Valentine Day disasters have you witnessed? He proposed. She said no. He cried and tried to change her mind for 20 minutes while she sat there stony faced. She finally got up and walked out. He paid and left in tears. Not a waiter, but I was a pastry chef at this big resort in Cape Cod. We got a special order from this guy who was coming in for his anniversary Valentine's Day. He wanted his dessert to have "Will you marry me" written on it so he could pop the question when it came out. He called ahead to the front and back kitchen. Even came in himself that morning to make sure it was good to go. The whole crew was behind him. We had cooks all night coming in to ask if it had happened yet. I wrote the inscription on the plate and dressed it to the nines with gold leaf and expensive chocolate. I'm taking a picture of the plate just before it's set to go out and notice our head waiter come in with a weird look on his face. He says plainly they don't need it. She broke up with him before the entrees hit the table. Ruthless. Old man proposed to old woman. He tried to get off the chair to kneel. Tripped and fell and I assume broke something since he couldn't get back up and we had to call an ambulance. My manager had to drive her teeth to the hospital separately because she had taken them out to eat her soup, Lord knows why, and left them on the table in the confusion. I laughed so hard that my husband woke up and thought I was sobbing. Tried to stifle since he was sleeping. He reached over to console me. I imagined the teeth in the passenger seat, strapped under the seat belt, just sitting there and chillin', smiling and wanting to chat. I worked at a pretty high-end Mediterranean bistro. My second Valentine's there. It was probably the busiest night I've ever worked as a server. We had reservations that booked basically the entire restaurant including the bar and patio from 4 PM to 11 PM. No walk-ins were to be seated unless a reservation was cancelled or someone with a reservation didn't show up. Most of the customers were pretty understanding and either waited or simply left. One dude however kept pushing and pushing, asking every 10 minutes how much longer until he is seated, constantly saying how he is a regular customer and how his date is going to be there at 7. He got there at 6. We insisted that once a table was available and all the customers before him were seated, he would get a table, but because the amount of reservations we couldn't guarantee he would even get a table at all. At about 6:50 the guy loses it, fast walks up to the hostess stand where the reservation book is, grabs the reservation book and practically runs out the front door. Now everything is going to complete shit because the only copy of the reservations for the night that is barely half over is gone. Two of the owners ran outside to follow the guy and try and get the book back, but by the time they got out he had already left the parking lot. Even better is, 2 hours later, chaos is still running rampant and the dude shows back up saying he has a reservation for 2. All 5 of the owners, all brothers, escorted the dude and his date out to the parking lot and banned him from the restaurant permanently. They even took a picture of him and posted it in the window saying "Do not serve this man TL." Dr. Salty dude without reservation steals reservation book and then tries to come back later. A couple sitting at the bar were enjoying their night out. The man got up from his bar stool and left for the bathroom, as his girlfriend was alone and absolutely wasted at the bar. A random woman approached and revealed that she recently matched with the woman's boyfriend on Tinder and had hooked up a week earlier. The drunk girlfriend refused to believe this story, so the woman showed her his Tinder profile and their conversation. The boyfriend returned to her drunk, sobbing and screaming girlfriend. I felt like I was watching a reality TV show. It was incredible. The poor girl was basically carried out of the bar by her boyfriend of 3 years whom she just discovered has been cheating on her for who knows how long. It was the most dramatic moment I have ever experienced and it was absolutely none of my business. Edit. I was a bar back at the time and this couple sat directly in front of the place I spend most of my time, the glass washing station. Edit 2. For those wondering how the woman knew the couple was in a long-term relationship, I really don't know. My guess is she figured it out the same way I did, based on listening, body language and the fact that this woman was overly touchy and liberal with cheek kisses and such. It was fairly obvious. Regardless, she approached out of concern and curiosity and she succeeded in outing the guy, which resulted in a very upsetting scene. A guy did a backflip and asked a girl to be his Valentine. She declined. I walked up to him and asked if he was fine. He said it took him a week to perfect. I feel for this guy, man, hope he found someone. They came in at lunch the day after, so it was pretty empty, but it was still for a Valentine's Day date. They were both pretty nice at the beginning. The guy asked for a picture and whatnot. As the meal went on, the dude got progressively drunker, and by the time I brought the check out, the woman was gone. When the dude gave me his card, he said, "I'll give you a bit of advice. If you're taking a girl out to break up with her, do it at a McDonald's and not an expensive restaurant." I was working at a corporate sports bar that specialized in chicken wings. V-Day, like most days, was insanely busy. As the evening winds down, someone calls in saying they're a professional food critic and demanded to speak to the manager. After a 15-minute call, the manager tells us the critic rated us a and said the food was good, but the service sucked. He said he would leave that last part out of his review if we comped his meal and gave him vouchers for free meals in the future, but he refused over and over to say where he worked. Confused, the manager talked to the server, who confirmed that the guy ate alone, rang her around ragged while shamelessly hitting on her, and left 0 tip. He wrote his phone number on the tip line. Thirsty bitch wanted free food because the server didn't call him immediately for a date. I used to work as an editor for one of the bigger newspapers in the US, and the role of food critic at the time was super interesting. He was a quiet, unassuming older man, and there was an impressive amount of effort put forward in keeping his identity a secret. For one, he never ate alone. He would invite co-workers, mostly on the editing side so they wouldn't be recognized, and very occasionally his friends to go with, so he was never with the same group of people. He would also ask everyone to order something different so he could try multiple dishes without coming back too often and raising suspicion. He would hit each restaurant several times, at different times of day and different days of the week, before making his review. He would also never be the one who paid for the meal. Instead, he would have someone who came with pay for it, and then the paper would compensate them once presented with the check. There were no photos of him on the company website or anywhere in the system, and I think I only saw him actually come into the office once or twice to chat with his editor. He also made a point to have a wide variety of clothing styles to wear out, but nothing that made him stand out. I always thought it was over the top until his editor got a phone call from an extremely angry restaurant owner that had received a bad review. He was demanding to know when the critic had come, in order to check the security cameras and figure out who it was, and also demanding a redo, where they could give the critic a VIP experience. I get it now. Ruth Reichel, who was the New York Times food critic for the middle of the 1990s, wrote a memoir about her time there, and the lengths to which restaurants would train their staffers to recognize her. She bought a series of wigs and created a few alternate personas so she could be treated differently in restaurants. Her first published review was for Le Cirque, a restaurant that you'd hear on TV shows as a cod phrase for snooty fine dining place you can neither afford nor get a table at, where she went 5 times, twice having been recognized, where she was treated like a queen, and the prior 3 visits included having a wine list jerked out of her hand because the waiter needed one for another table. She gave the place 3 stars instead of its accustomed 4, and the footy chattering class acted like she'd blown up the dining room. It was a significant, but well-earned blow to Le Cirque's reputation. Her books are pretty funny. I had a Section 1 V-Day that had a marriage proposal, a 40th anniversary, and a breakup all at the same time. The breakup was the worst. The guy brought his high-class date a gift, a mini ceramic bear holding balloons. He presented it when I was at the table and she looked at it like it was a hot turd. I just knew this was not going to end well. She left at the end of the meal and must have said something because he stayed at the table for another 40 minutes, head down and crying. I felt bad. He saw the celebrations going on at the other tables. Probably not the kind of story you're looking for, but one Valentine's Day at my restaurant we got totally slammed and the kitchen started melting down. In the middle of dinner service the head chef freaked out, threw a side of salmon at one of the line cooks and walked out. Thank you for watching and listening to my channel. Feel free to drop a comment and be sure to like and subscribe and hit that notification button for the latest video I publish every day. See you on the next video, very Reddit fans.